good evening, or good morning. This is David discussing, and it is 2 a.m., 2:11 a.m. of the 25th July, July 25th, 2025. It's a bit too late for my taste, but I want to speak about the Great Recall vote, which will be held tomorrow, actually, on on Saturday. Yeah, and so I thought this topic is very important, and it is worth breaking it down also for a Western audience, because I think it's really represented in, for example, in German newspapers, also in English-speaking normal newspapers. It is underrepresented. There are some more scientific articles about it, but I think it's a very important topic. And as a person who has lived for 1 year in Taiwan, right now I am in my room, which I will rent until tomorrow morning, after which I will leave in Da'an. Yes, and so I think for me it's also a very important topic I want to talk about. So, for those who don't know anything about Taiwanese politics, Taiwanese is a de facto independent country, called the Republic of China, and there are two main parties: the Kuomintang, or Chinese Nationalist Party, and the Democratic Progressive Party, DPP. The Kuomintang, which is described as right-wing and conservative, is blue, like Italian, German, English conservative or right-wing parties, and the Democratic Progressive Party is green. Now, what does conservative and right-wing mean? Of course, it has some financial implications, but the biggest Kuomintang and TPP, so KMT, Kuomintang, transliterated in an old way is KMT. The biggest divide between KMT and DPP is over the topic of who are we, and by we I mean them, the Taiwanese people. Who are the Taiwanese people? Are they Chinese? Are they still Chinese after so many decades, and since 1949 they were a separated entity from mainland China? Are they still they are ethnic Chinese mostly, but are they still Chinese inside culturally? Do they still see each other as Chinese, or do they see each other as Taiwanese, as an independent cultural entity? And so the Kuomintang, the right-wing conservative KMT, is following traditionally a one China policy, where it says we are the true China, we are the Republic of China. We still want to claim that we are the true representative of Chinese people, and we're the rightful government of the whole of China, because they lost the civil war and fled to Taiwan, lost the civil war to the Communist Party. So anyways, in a way, the Republic of China government was the government of the whole of China once, and now it is not anymore. It is only the government of Taiwan, the island, and a few other little islands. While the DPP says, no, we are a new identity, we are Taiwanese. The DPP is for de facto independence, even though maybe not really for proclaiming an own state, like for seeking public recognition. There it is a bit divided. It is a bit worried about China as a potential invader and aggressor. The Taiwan used to be not really a one-party dictatorship, but it used to be it used to be a one-party dictatorship until the 1990s. There used to be martial law, the so-called White Terror, which were anti-communist purges, where people who were supposed to be communist sympathizers were purged by the Kuomintang, which was the ruling party, dictatorial party. And then in 1987, I think, the military law was ended officially, and the Democratic Progress Party was recognized later. And then there were Taiwan democratized and democratized, and now Taiwan is a thriving East Asian democracy, and also one of the first countries in East Asia to recognize LGBTIQ+. So there also it's very on the forefront of all these developments. And there were held legislative and presidential elections on January 13, 2024, so last year, January, which had an interesting result. The DPP, the Democratic Progressive Party, who was in office for a while, I think since 2016, but like for several years already, for several presidencies, won the presidential election with a 40%, with the next competitor, the Kuomintang KMT, coming with 33%, so 7 percentage points less, and then another third party, the TPP, with 27%. So these three are the big parties. This third party is relatively new. It's the Taiwan People's Party, most recently relatively aligned with the Kuomintang KMT. Anyways, so the president won, and the Taiwanese legislative system does not make, unlike Brazil, for example, does not make a second vote necessary, a runoff vote. So 40% is enough to win the presidential elections. Lai Ching-te from the DPP, from the Progressive Party, was elected president. But in the legislative Yuan, which is the parliament of Taiwan, it could not build a majority. Indeed, Kuomintang and KMT and TPP together built a majority and started to cooperate. So the executive Yuan, which is where the government sits, the government is a Democratic Progressive Party government, but it doesn't have the majority. It's a minority government, and this leads to very interesting oxymoric sentences for us Europeans. Like, I'm from Germany and Italy. Like, I can't even recall it now, but like the opposition majority or something, right? It's not like that. In European democracies, we don't have, at least in Italy and Germany, we rarely had minority governments, or not at all. So this leads to a problem, because for the government, and also for the coordination, so the president is forced to sign some laws which have been passed by the opposition. That's oxymoronic, right? Usually the opposition doesn't pass laws in Europe or in Italy or in Germany. But yeah, this was the case. Kuomintang and TPP started to cooperate. Okay. Now, there were some heavy critiques from the Democratic Progressive Party, which is at the government, against the two parties who formed actually a majority coalition at the opposition. So, for example, the KMT called for annulment of the Anti-Infiltration Act. The Anti-Infiltration Act was, of course, against China, against the People's Republic China, the Communist China. The KMT argued that this Anti-Infiltration Act, which should prevent an infiltration from Communist China, criminalized collaborators of Beijing. So this is Peking, Beijing, the Chinese capital. So this is an interesting argument, right? He doesn't want to criminalize collaborators of mainland China. They also want the KMT, I'm speaking of now, the conservative pro-One China party wants to resume the Cross-Strait service trade talks. It should be CTSTT, which were already Cross-Strait means, of course, Taiwanese trade, like Taiwan and China talking together about service trade agreements. and this agreement was stalled in 2013. It was stopped by the Sunflower Movement, a popular uprising which even physically blocked, occupied the parliament, and then for a few, I think even a few weeks, or at least for a few days, and then they left and cleaned afterwards. So everyone was very surprised at the time that peaceful, harmonious Taiwanese people would be occupying their parliament, or Taiwanese citizens would be occupying the parliament. So now the Kuomintang, the KMT, wants to resume this service trade talks. By the way, if you're European, at least in Germany, we also have this a lot, that mostly left-wing citizens or politicians are worried, or used to be worried, about trade talks, right? There were a lot of manifestations against trade agreements with the USA, with Canada, which were seen as intransparent. So already as a European, you can imagine, maybe as a more left-leaning European who knows like what these critiques are about, you can imagine how deeply resentful some Taiwanese citizens might be about resuming trade talks, probably relatively intransparent trade talks with China, which is seen as a potential invader and aggressor. China claims Taiwan as its own province, while it has been de facto independent, and also it has never been under the jurisdiction of the People's Republic of China. And so there is this divide. Okay, and then the Kuomintang KMT, with the support of the of the TTP, also froze in January 2025, froze some budget, or like decided some budget cuts. It froze the budget. It froze 70% of the budget of the Ministry of National Defense's operational funds. So this means the Ministry of National Defense of Taiwan can buy less ammunition and build less weapons against China. There was also 150 billion Taiwan dollar cut in funds for larger defense resilience. There were big cuts of the subventions of Taipower, so the energy companies, which is right now about to fail, or which has severe financial problems. So they cut the subventions for Taipower, with some politicians from the Democratic Progressive Party seeing this as an attempt to make the prices rise and then blame the government. Even though this is, of course, just their perspective, it's a bit unclear what they want to achieve by cutting the subventions of Taipower, of the Taipower enterprise. Of course, they say it's just wise government spending, maybe also like aligned with right-wing, traditional neoliberal right-wing ideas of cutting the government spending. And also they froze 50% of the of a program which is the Narwhal. It's a submarine program. So Taiwan was starting to create its own submarine program, building its own submarine, the Narwhal, a hunter-killer submarine, so an attack submarine. Also, of course, in a potential war against China, where China might invade Taiwan. All of these have been unprecedented cuts. Of course, there were governments by the Democratic Progressive Party before, where there was a similar situation, where also there were drastic cuts by Kuomintang legislature majority. I think, I'm not totally sure if it was exactly like now, but in any case, there were never cuts which were so big to a budget, even though actually there has been extra, I lack the exact word, but there has been extra revenue. So the Taiwanese state, de facto government and state, had more taxes than it planned for. So it had more tax revenue than it planned for because of the economic situation. So it's not that it's hard to argue that, at least the DPP would say, it's hard to argue that Taiwan needs right now such a drastic government spending. Also, the KMT and TPP have been rushing bills through without public hearings or adequate debate. This is the critique by the DPP and also by by parts of civil society. KMT also refused to confirm constitutional court judges, thereby blocking, thereby kind of harming, of course, the constitutional court. We used to have, I'm not sure if it's over now, but we had a similar problem in Germany. Not that grave, but German people maybe can compare. There was also a constitutional court election which was blocked actually by the government party. So the opposition is blocking, refused to confirm constitutional court judges, and also an author in the Taipei Times, which is more DPP leaning, as I read. The articles were more against what the Kuomintang is doing, but an article of the Taipei Times, which writes in English, publishes in English also, said that the worst thing the Kuomintang proposed was to amend Article 29 of the Act governing relations between the people of the Taiwan area and the mainland area. So it is a law or an act governing the relation between Taiwan and mainland China, and they want to amend this article in a way that it would not anymore become a national defense, a matter of national defense. So they want to relocate it, if I understood it right. And anyways, this amendment would reframe, so the author of this article argued, would reframe the Cross-Strait conflict as an unresolved civil war from 1949. So it would not be anymore a war between two countries, but unresolved civil war, which is exactly, of course, the perspective of mainland China, of the communist-led or Communist Party governed People's Republic of China, that they say Taiwan as a rebellious province, right? And also they warn other countries like Germany, other European and Western countries, they warn them against meddling in the Chinese internal affairs, right? And also interestingly enough, the KMT and I guess also the TPP, because otherwise they wouldn't have a majority, but these two parties proposed or already set in, like already decided a universal cash out of 10,000 Taiwan dollars. For Europeans, this would be about a bit less than 300 euros right now. So every Taiwanese citizen would receive 10,000 Taiwan dollars, about 300 euros, for no reason, basically. And so it is also, like, of course, the Democratic Progressive Party said, why do we have money for that if we are cutting everything else, right? If we're cutting the budget, and, you know, why should it lead to more prosperity? And of course, the critique is that this is buying votes, because citizens, so civic organizations, non-governmental organizations, started a movement, which is what we're talking about today and what will be voted about tomorrow on the July 26th, which is the big or the great recall, Chinese 大罢免 or 大罢免潮, so great recall wave or great recall. What does recall mean? It took me some time to understand this, because it's something which is not possible in, at least, I don't know about other countries, but it's not possible neither in Germany nor in Italy on a national level. Apparently, it can be possible on a regional level. So recalling means that we have a legislator, we have elected a legislator. In this case, it's, I think, as I understood it, it's a majority election of majoritarian election, following the majoritarian principle of let's say district, of of an area. So every area elects one legislator and sends him or her to the legislative yuan, to the parliament. So, and these legislators can be recalled, which means there can be enough votes gathered, like someone going around with a list, and enough people demanding the recall, and then this recall will be voted about. So if I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think it had something to do with a fourth and a half. But if a certain amount, a certain percentage of Taiwanese voters within this area will vote in favor of the recall, so will vote yes, this legislator, this politician will lose its position, his position, her position. And so this is an important election due tomorrow. And so on the 26th of July, on July 26th, there will be 24 legislative deputies, all from the KMT party, where the people in the different areas of Taiwan, not in all Taiwan, but in many areas, will vote whether they want to keep them or whether they don't want, or whether they want to recall them. Of course, there must be a certain percentage of people participating in this vote, otherwise it won't be valid. And there will be 7 further, also by the KMT, so also KMT politicians risking to lose their mandate on August 7th, all this year. We're talking about 2025, if you're watching this from the future. So, what does it mean? Of course, this was started by non-governmental organizations, and later, of course, the Democratic Progressive Party supported, and also the president, which is from the Democratic Progressive Party, right? I forgot his name, wait. Lai Ching-te. He also, of course, urged the citizens to vote in favor of the recall of these politicians if of these 24 plus 7 votes or recall votes, if of these the citizens decide to recall 12 KMT deputies, and then there will be by-elections. There will be, like, these places will be elected again. These mandates will be, or these areas will elect a new deputy to represent their area. And if then the Democratic Progressive Party wins in 6 cases, at least 6 cases, the Democratic Progressive Party will have established a majority in the legislative yuan, which is a fascinating principle for me as a German and Italian, because it means that there is a government which cannot really pass laws right now because it is a minority government, and it can change its minority by recall votes, like, which were actually initiated by civic society. But the government, of course, hopes now to become an actual government, to become a majority government, and to avoid also these, what the government sees as a betrayal of Taiwan's interests, of an offer of, like, as if Taiwan was offering itself to China, please invade us. And I have also heard several different opinions by Taiwanese people, of course. There was one Taiwanese person who was deeply knowledgeable about politics, and she said, how can it be that elected, so she was at least against the Kuomintang, against the KMT, I would say, and she said, how can it be that elected deputies, elected parliamentaries actually seem to favor a unification of my country, of Taiwan, with another country by means of this country invading us, right? So she said, like, she was really worried about this and told me about this recall vote. And she said, how can it be that some deputies almost seem to, in the perspective of the Democratic Progressive Party and these organizations, these civic organizations, almost seems to favor the invasion. And in fact, there are also supporters, especially old supporters of the KMT, of this conservative party. So they are old members or old supporters of this party who say this is going too far to one China policy, too China friendly. So this is a big debate, which will be like the vote will be held tomorrow, July 26th. The perspective of the KMT on all this is, of course, that it is a slaughter of deputies by the opposition, and the president is seeking a one-party authoritarian rule. So both sides, KMT and TTP, and on the other side, the Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, and also some civic societies, some civic organizations, both argue that they're defending democracy, that they're defending Taiwanese interests in democracy, in a stable democracy. Yeah, and that's of course typical in a way, right? Everyone thinks they're right, and now democratic values are very en vogue, fortunately, or at least, everyone's saying they're Democrats and the others are dictators or favoring dictatorship. And they also spoke of a green terror. Green is the color of the Democratic Progressive Party. So they say this is a green terror or something like that. And the interesting thing is that the Chinese Communist Party, so we're talking now about mainland China's government or the People's Republic government, supported this view and actually made propaganda for the view, or created propaganda which supported the view of the KMT, that Lai Ching-te and the Democratic Progressive Party are in fact creating a dictatorship. So it's very interesting that an actual dictatorship. There's of course no doubt from a political science perspective that China is at least an autocracy, right? A dictatorship. So that an actual dictatorship is which wants to unify or to take the forlorn province back into itself, that this dictatorship is supporting a big, maybe actually right now the biggest party, or like slightly most favored party within, by number of legislative deputies within these democratic countries. So there is, there are two parties or three parties, and some are cutting the budget, the defense budget of this country, of Taiwan, of the Republic of China. So of course a lot of people are worried, including my neighbor, who's worried that Taiwan will become like Hong Kong, so that Taiwan will lose its autonomy. Hong Kong is this famous case where China said we want one state, two systems, and in the end actually it kind of destroyed, or it kind of reduced Hong Kong's democracy, democratic rights, liberal freedoms by means of force, by means of laws also. But of course Hong Kong was already kind of surrounded by China in a way. Taiwan is not directly, right? Taiwan is an island off the coast of China. And there were also, as I told, there are old people who used to support the KMT, the Conservative Party, and now are angry about the party, to say the least. And there's also, of course, retired military officers who say, like, this is not in the interest of our self-defense to cut its budget, and is not in the interest of Taiwan. For example, there's Taiwan's so-called Eagle Dad, some old military officer who also supported these recall votes. While when I walk through the city, I see many posters. Actually, my Chinese reading skill is hai hao, is all right. But I've seen many posters, all the same posters, supporting with a gesture, thing a bit like that, supporting the no vote. So saying, no, you should not. And the text is something like, the bad politicians or the bad legislators want to evilly, or want to infamously recall the good, the high quality legislators, which are the KMT legislators, this is outrageous, please vote or vote no. Yeah, on July 26th, vote no. And my neighbor, who is supporting, or let's say he's against the KMT, also he supports the yes to the recall. Yes means these politicians won't be able to finish serving their term. These 20, how many? Well, it depends in every case, of course. It can be that one, like in every case, it will be a independent vote. But also this neighbor of mine, he says, he said, of course, the KMT has money for posters, and business seems to be in general more, or like rich people seem to vote more for the KMT, old people seem to vote more for the KMT, and young people, there's a strong generational political divide, as it seems. At least that's what I've heard. Young people seem to vote more the Democratic Progressive Party, which has less money. Also, the campaign has less money. So, as my neighbor at least said, who's pro-campaign, pro-recall, he said, we have nothing but our voices, but our presence on the streets. So, of course, a very emphatic and passionate. Okay, this is it for about politics right now. I will tell you a little bit about me. If you don't want to hear it, you're free to stop the video and come back to a later video of mine where we'll maybe comment on the outcome of this vote, because fortunately for me, but unfortunately for this video channel, I won't be able to comment live, for example, on the vote, because I will be in airplane. I believe I will actually I will arrive. I will see. I will need to, but I will have other things to do. So now is already the night of the July 25th. I will get a few hours of sleep, not as many as I hoped for, and then tomorrow evening, like today evening, on the July 25th, again Friday, I will take a plane back to Germany, but I will have a layover, so it will last a long time, in which I hope that I will be able to sleep so much, and because I haven't slept enough in the last few days also. And yes, so I will return to Europe. I will return to Germany after 1 year in Taiwan, in Taipei. As I said, this semester I'm staying in Da'an, which, by the way, is apparently a richer district, and at least my neighbor said it's more pro-KMT, so maybe more against the recall. We will see. I don't even know if I think there's a recall vote also here, because I saw some posters, but I'm not, I'm a foreigner, of course, WION, and I'm just representing the facts I've heard as good as I can. So also, if you notice some flaw, if you notice some really objective flaw, please tell me, of course, friendly, politely, and I will try to remake for it in later videos or to explain it in some way. And but I think, like, I tried to do my research. In fact, I started to write an article, and I'm so displeased that I won't be able to publish the article today, and I don't know if I will be able to publish the article and to finish the article and to publish it before the vote, because I just have the time in the airport left tomorrow before taking the plane, and I don't know if this time will be enough. I will go a bit earlier to the airport. Yeah, and I would have loved to write an article, but actually I found this topic so vast and so important that I put too much pressure on myself, and I kind of lost myself in research, and now I haven't finished even my first draft of the article. I don't know if I will be able to publish it before the vote. In any ways, I would say roughly what I said in this video, and so I will return. I will take the plane tomorrow. The day after, I will arrive in Germany. Yeah, and I think it would be a very honorable, a very interesting way, a very kind of noble way to finish my year in Taiwan by publishing an article which in some way serves, the public cause, we can call it like that, of Taiwan. But I'm not sure if I will make it. In any case, you will have this video. I hope someone will see it. If not, it's my first video on this YouTube channel, which I started to talk on several topics, among these politics, Asian politics, but also European politics and other things, also philosophy. And okay, yesterday I had my last free evening in Taipei. Today I was very busy actually, and I worked for a few hours, like for quite a few hours, and then I had to pack my stuff, to finish packing my stuff. You don't see it because it's already outside in the inner courtyard, kind of. But I finished packing my stuff for the big flight back after 1 year, and also I cleaned my room. I'm quite satisfied, and I did a lot of things apart from working, also many kind of important things or things I wanted to do. And I was really in a flow state, I would say. So I wasn't feeling neither overthinking nor feeling too exhausted, nor feeling too overwhelmed. So I really liked cleaning also in a flow state. I'm quite happy with the result. I think I cleaned quite well. Anyways, yesterday evening was my last real evening outside in Taipei. Most of my friends who studied with me here have already left, and I have some Taiwanese friends, some other co-foreigners, like other exchange students, still here. But I decided to spend the evening on my own yesterday, even though on my own means that actually I paid a visit to the district where I lived before, which is Sanchong in New Taipei. Both places where I lived are very Taiwanese. Also, Da'an is not, there are many tourists in Da'an, but this place where I'm staying here is, there are, really exactly here, it's really local. And also Sanchong is very local, right? There are almost no, foreigners are almost not visible in Sanchong. And yesterday I went back there to kind of pay my respect, kind of say thank you for the first semester, and also, to be honest, to go to my favorite pizzeria in Taipei, or New Taipei. And anyways, later I went to this beautiful park I really love, which is something like Sanchong, something sports park, but you will find it if you look for it. And and of course, both Chinese and Taiwanese, especially old people, are amazing, right? If you haven't never been to Asia, you can't know. Maybe you have seen some social media posts where you see like 80 years old, like doing crazy stuff, which even 20 years old in Europe, even not here, of course, but like which is really crazy, like some crazy cardio or workout or calisthenics. They do a lot of calisthenics. So I went to this park. I even briefly joined some Tai Chi Chuan group, but it was already finishing. I just did my sports, my workout alongside Taiwanese people. Many of them old, 60, 70 years old maybe. And we liked it on the monkey bar and like chin-ups, pull-ups. Then I started running. I didn't have the right shoes, so I ran barefoot. I haven't seen this there, so I was the only barefoot runner, only barefoot jogger on these running tracks. But in other places, so close to my university, I have seen people running barefoot. And I'm thankful for having spent 1 year in Taiwan. I studied for 1 year, one exchange year at the National University of National University of Governance, or NCCU, or 国立政治大学. And yesterday I reflected, one thing I will miss the most will be these parks crowded with people in the evening, old people, young people also, children also, who do sports, and you can be as crazy as you want. I actually climbed some, which was quite scary. I climbed a 2.5 meters high bar, which I just want to climb it. It was an iron bar, Probably it was even made for this purpose, but I was the only one, and I kind of slided down. I even hurt myself a bit, but I really enjoyed. I think you can be even crazier in Taiwan, at least from a sports perspective, and you will always feel social because you're surrounded by people in these parks. Like if you feel lonely and happen to be in Taipei, if you are in Taipei and feel lonely, go to this park, Sanchong something sports park, combined or something sports park. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I'm David. This is David Discusses about, I forgot the right order, but it was about politics, philosophy, and literature. See you the next time. Thank you so much.